Alright, we're in my basement lair. I'm trying to find a quiet spot to sort of look around in here. I thought I'd take this morning to talk about bike wheel size, given that it's way too cold for me to be outside riding. It's something like 0 degrees out right now. And while I fancy myself a hard man, that's pretty cold. So, anyway, thought I'd talk about wheel size and advantages and disadvantages and sort of things to keep in mind when you're picking what wheel size your next bike or your existing bike is going to run on. So let me set you up and we'll have a nice talk.
So, in thinking about wheel sizes on mountain bikes, you can imagine my amusement when I came back into mountain biking and realized that there were many more wheel sizes than when I had left. And it reminds me in some ways of the early days of full suspension on mountain bikes in that people were trying a lot of different things to see what worked, and then over time you sort of saw consensus grow on what good options were, what the good way to set things up was. So it feels a little bit like that. Anyway, when I started riding mountain bikes, 26-inch wheels was the standard. That's what there was in the early days. There were small exceptions here and there, and then as sort of the free ride world grew up a little bit, people were experimenting with 24-inch wheels, particularly on the rear wheel of some bikes. Brooklyn Machine Works did a bike, the Park bike, that had a 26 front and a 24-inch rear. Planet X did a whole bunch of 24-inch wheeled bikes. Specialized did a sort of free ride downhill bike that had a 24-inch rear wheel with a 26 in the front. Again, a lot of experimentation. And most of the constraints there were based around how big a tire you could stuff onto something without affecting the chainstay length. People were very interested in keeping chainstays very short. And that's where a lot of that came from. So as I was leaving, 29ers had come out. Gary Fisher had sort of pushed them into the mainstream a bit. And I was deeply amused at the time that what was being called a 29-inch wheel was exactly the same as a 700C road wheel. So they're basically road wheels off-road. And if you know about the early days of mountain biking, you'll find that high-end touring rims were getting cut and hooped into 26-inch wheels in order to get lighter, more high-performance rims before really good mountain bike rims existed. So it's sort of amusing to sort of see it go back the other direction. Anyway, and 27.5-inch, it's also worth noting, is a 650B sized wheel. Again, a road size, although a road size historically used on small women's road frames and or triathlon frames back in the day. Quintana Roo was using 650s on almost everything. And they did it twofold. They said that the smaller wheels were more aerodynamic, but they also said that they needed them to get the very short reach across the top of the bikes on some of those bikes. When you're on aero bars all the time, you need the top of the bike to be the top tube to be fairly short, and that gets very difficult to do on full size wheels. So they scaled the wheels down. Anyway, so now 27.5 and 29 seem to be the standards, with plus variants of either, and plus mostly comes down to how fat a tire you want to be able to stuff on the top of the thing. But the interesting part to me is that I don't know, to some degree it feels like people have thrown physics out the window a little bit. Physics tells us that rotating masses are constantly accelerating, and that takes energy. And the further from the center of rotation that you get, the more the mass matters. So what that means is a very light hub is useful, and it rotates, but because it rotates right around the axle, its weight matters less than something that's rotating far from the center of rotation, like a tire. So if you're trying to make your wheels perform at their very best, you can throw a whole bunch of money at a very lightweight hub, or you can throw some money at a lightweight tire, and you will see more performance benefit from an acceleration perspective and a weight perspective from the lightweight tire than you would from the lightweight hub. Okay, so that's the first bit. And the second bit is both of these new wheel sizes are larger, right? Everything, the tire, is further away from the center, which means that mass matters more. So it's been really interesting to me to watch wheel size grow, and also tire size grow, both of which have negative impacts on the acceleration of a wheel, right? How much energy it takes to accelerate the wheel. And that's been sort of interesting. I still ride 26s, not because I'm anti-29 or anti-27.5, or you ride what you want, doesn't really matter to me, I suppose. But the interesting part to me is that that people seem to have forgotten some of that, and that the trend to do like 29 plus wheels, to put these very wide 3-inch tires on very wide rims, way out at the edge of a very large wheel, it feels to me like that would be really, really good someplace where you've got smoother, more flowy, constant velocity trails. I'm thinking long downhills with berms and things where you're trying to carry momentum and that sort of thing. And that would be great. I think those would perform very well in such circumstances. But again, I ride in New England tight twisty single track. It's very technical. It's very, very cramped and narrow and jagged. And momentum is difficult, and you find yourself constantly having to accelerate out of corners and accelerate into the bottom of hills and sort of constantly trying to ramp up the bike. And those big wheels with those big tires, as amusing as they are and as fun as they can be, don't accelerate as well. It's physics. There's no getting around that. And so I guess what I'm saying is, as you think about wheel size and as you think about the tires that you put on those wheels, just remember the effect it's going to have based on physics, on the ride quality and on the way the bike behaves in those circumstances. So, something to think about anyway. I would much rather have done this outside with a wheel to point at, but it's 0 degrees out right now, and I'm not riding any bikes when it's 0 degrees out. Anyway, till next time.